Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Jonathan Thames of Rosie and Ernie Productions, and welcome to another episode of Multimedia Megafan Movie Reviews. Today we're diving into part 2 of our serial review of the DCEU. As mostly everyone knows, the follow-up to 2013's Man of Steel was Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which was released in theaters in March of 2016. I was way excited to see this movie when it was announced. There have been many conflicts between the two characters in the comics and animated films, and I really couldn't wait to see this go down on the big screen. When the first trailer was released, I had shivers down my spine just from seeing the setup for the big fight sequence between the two of them, and its really accurate depiction from a moment of Frank Miller's graphic novel, The Dark Knight Returns. Overall, I was, and still am, extremely happy with this movie, and I'll proudly admit that it's probably my favorite comic book movie of all time to date. That isn't to say that it's perfect. It has what are, in my opinion, just a couple of particular flaws that I'll also discuss. But first, let's talk about the things that I like about it. Like Man of Steel, this movie carries all of the qualities and tone of Zack Snyder's signature look in terms of color grading and lighting, which I've established in my previous video that I'm a big fan of, so I'll move on from that. So the first thing I really like is the way that they connected the final fight scene in Man of Steel to introduce the starting point for this movie without using any of the same clips. Being able to see what went down from a different perspective helped make it feel like I wasn't just re-watching the same scene from the previous film, and in my opinion, it really effectively communicates the emotion of fear and intimidation that Bruce feels during these moments, which contrasts greatly with the emotions communicated during the same events from Superman's perspective in Man of Steel. And if you go back and watch Man of Steel after seeing this, and yeah, I have many times, you can pinpoint the pivotal moment from this scene in BVS that sets things into motion when it occurs from Superman's perspective, but no major impact is revealed to the audience until it's seen from Bruce's perspective in this scene. It retroactively gives significance to something that at first seemed relatively insignificant. I thought that was pretty clever. Now, another thing I thought was pretty clever is the way that the conspiracy against Superman unfolds as orchestrated by Lex Luthor. He's brilliant in his manipulation of the other characters in the story, and more specifically Batman himself, against Superman with a campaign of fear against the unchecked power he possesses. When all of the pieces finally come together to reveal the full scope of Luthor's influence over the events of the movie, it becomes clear that he definitely inhabits the same level of evil genius as his comic book counterpart. I also think Jesse Eisenberg delivers as Lex Luthor, which I know is highly contrary to popular opinion, so let me explain. Throughout the history of the character, there had been an evolving approach to him. In the early days, he was portrayed as a highly eccentric, though highly intelligent, mad scientist who was hell-bent on obtaining world domination. Now, over time, his character evolved and became known as more of a sleek and smooth business conglomerate / multi-millionaire whose companies focus more on the scientific development of illegal military and black market type weaponry, and sought to achieve world domination by gaining political advancement. But he never completely lost that eccentricity. Inherently, he's always been the mad scientist we had from the early days, but he attempts to disguise his eccentricity behind his slick tongue and developed public persona. Often, however, his eccentricities reveal themselves when in times of conflict, and we get a sense of just how nutso this guy really is. And I feel like that's exactly what Jesse gave us. He was cold, he was calculated, he was brilliant, and he was absolutely unhinged. I loved it. The next item of praise is Batman. Along with Lex's conspiracy against Superman runs the theme of Batman's fall. Now, this movie doesn't feature the young, idealistic, heroic Batman whose journey had just begun, but rather the bitter, beaten down, brutal Batman who's lost his way and has been driven to the edge of madness from all of his years of hardship and loss fighting crime in Gotham, and feels completely invalidated and powerless due to Superman's existence. Having become cold and calloused and being blinded by grief and fear, he's unknowingly manipulated by the acts of Lex Luthor into seeking out Superman's destruction. And let me just say that Ben Affleck is by far the most comic book accurate Batman that we've ever had. Up to this point, I've always said that Michael Keaton was my favorite, but from my perspective, there is no denying Ben looked amazing in costume and played the role flawlessly. And he didn't even have to say, "I'm Batman." Additionally, Batman's fight choreography is way better than anything we'd ever gotten in previous Batman films, which is mainly due to the fact that the more natural looking and less restrictive suit allowed for more freedom of movement. I also want to mention the direct Batman comic book storyline references, particularly the one from a graphic novel called A Death in the Family, which is the story of the murder of Jason Todd, the second Robin, at the hands of the Joker. The storyline is hugely popular among DC fans, and that story set into motion events that still continue today in the books and animated films. But I won't go into that storyline any further here. Suffice it to say, I really hope to see more development from that. The actual fight scene between Batman and Superman is awesome. Again, everything just flows together really, really well, and Batman is just flat out vicious in his attack, still clouded by all of his built-up and misplaced hatred for Superman. And now to talk about the high point of controversy in the movie, the resolution of their fight. Just in case anybody's out there that hasn't seen it, I won't spoil the details of it, but can I just say that I actually thought it was really clever? Again, I know that isn't the popular opinion, but it is my opinion. Here's the thing, even after being a fan my whole life, I never would have thought to connect the two characters in the way the writers did for this movie, because it completely slipped my radar that they shared that particular similarity. And the main reason I think it works well is because it's ultimately what forces Batman to recognize Superman's humanity and confront and overcome his own monstrosity in order to again become the heroic Batman we all know and love. Overall, I thought it was a very, very powerful and very relatable reason for them to cease the battle. The next attribute I want to talk about is the strength of Superman's symbolism in this movie. The continued theme of Superman representing hope that was established back in Man of Steel is amplified in this film considerably. I mean, against all odds and all judgment, he pulls through and brings hope to a seemingly hopeless situation with his selfless actions as he protects the world against the Doomsday Monster brought to life by Lex's and General Zod's DNA. Which brings me to the last reason I love this movie, the final fight sequence. Now, in my opinion, this sequence has one primary flaw, which I'll cover shortly, but overall it's a pretty awesome viewing experience. As far as movement and stylization, everything just looks beautiful, smooth, and seamless. The biggest highlight is the introduction of Wonder Woman. When she shows up for the first time, she makes it clear that she is a force to be reckoned with, and she has the coolest theme music I've ever heard. It just gets you amped. And finally seeing the DC Trinity together in live action on the big screen for the first time was absolutely spellbinding and really intensified my thirst for future DC projects to come. So to recap, I love this movie because of how it ties into Man of Steel with the battle scene in Metropolis. I love the cleverly written and intricately developed conspiracy plot carried out by Lex Luthor against Superman. I like how Jesse Eisenberg portrayed Lex Luthor's eccentric and brilliant characteristics. Ben Affleck is amazing as Batman, Superman's strong symbolism for hope and its impact on the world around him, and because the final fight sequence was an exciting, intense, and visually spectacular live-action introduction of the beloved DC Trinity. Now to talk about some of the not-so-strong points of the movie. And again for this one, I really don't have that many, but there are a couple of little things. The first thing that I want to bring up is Jimmy Olsen. Now, traditionally, Jimmy is a photographer who works at the Daily Planet and is a long time and close confidant of Clark Kent and Lois Lane, and has shown up in practically every major incarnation of Superman as a purposeful character. But in this movie, what we get is a little different. It starts out promising enough when Jimmy introduces himself as a photographer to Lois as she's arriving on location to conduct an interview, but when she arrives at the interview, one of the mercenaries identifies Jimmy as an undercover CIA agent, and after discovering a tracker in the camera, blows him away. Bye-bye, Jimmy Olsen. I mean, I'm not bashing it, I just definitely wasn't expecting it, and I guess I just have to wonder why even include him at all if he weren't going to stick around as a character. He's literally in the movie for no less than a consecutive 3 minutes. But if nothing else, it's at least an Easter egg to the character's existence. The other thing I feel like could have been a little bit more satisfying is the design of Doomsday. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the battle is amazing, as I've already said, and the CGI actually looks really good for the most part, in my opinion, but I feel like he could have been designed to look a little bit more like his comic book counterpart. The design they went with just seemed a little generic in comparison to his design from the comic pages, and I even once heard somebody compare him directly to the design of the troll in The Lord of the Rings, and I can't actually say that I disagree. They do look pretty similar. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.